We're going to work on problem 6.4.8, most improved, and this is actually an excellent problem. There's a fair bit to this. Wait a second here. Wait a minute. I'm going to go like this. And what we'll see initially is that there's actually three classes in total. There's the main class, which is our classroom tester. There's a student class, and there's a classroom class. Now, when I look at these, what I like to try to do initially is try and simplify this as much as possible. One of the classes typically, outside of the main class, one of the classes is the one that we're going to use to build up our objects. And the second class is a class that's going to have an array, or in the next unit, an array list of the objects that we initially create. So what we want to do is simplify this as much as possible. And I can see by opening Classroom right away that there is an array of student objects being created. I'm going to just remove that for now. Let's just simplify this. And let's just start building. So all we do is initialize or instantiate our student objects and get things working without an error. So I can see this is referring to classroom. I'm going to get rid of this for now. Control X. And I'm going to move it down here to just above where we add students to the classroom. And again, this refers to the classroom class, which we want to just ignore for now. So I'm going to completely remove or comment out anything to do with the classroom class for now. Actually, it looks like this is going to be a problem as well too, so let's just comment that out as well too. And let's just finish our comments. There we go. I think we've got it. Okay, let's see if this thing runs. All right, we're missing a return statement in the student class, so we'll go down to line 35. And okay, not surprisingly, it's supposed to return an int, so let's just make one up here. We're just going to go say, whoopsie, return 0. I know this is not going to give us a correct answer, but at least we'll hopefully get this to run without an error. Classroom 15. Oh, missing return statement. Okay, so we do need to go back, unfortunately, to the classroom class and just clean this up so at least it'll compile without an error. Public student, you know what we can do actually, we can just comment this out. Okay, let's see if it runs. There we go. I'm going to close this again, just so there's no distraction. And so all we see now is just the student class. We're going to create our student objects, and then we'll see if we can solve the problem. And here's the assignment. What we want to do is come up with the most improved student, and it's the one with the largest exam score range. So let's go through the code and see what's happening here. Each student object uses a first name, a last name, and I think that's probably a grade. And let's go into student and have a look at our constructor. And this is a very long explanation. We know it's a constructor. Let's just get rid of this. Okay, it creates an instance as the class, means takes the input parameters and sets the instance variables or fields. I'm just going to get rid of this again, just for the sake of simplicity. And we'll go like this. We can leave that line to say this is a constructor. Okay, so we have first name, last name, and grade. And if we go back here, we've got first name, last name, and grade. Now, what is all this? Well, once we create our student, ADA, we're going to add an exam score. In fact, we're going to add 3 of them all at once. So let's go and have a look at add exam score and see how that works. So add exam score, way down here. Okay, exams, so we have an array inside of here with num exams taken. Okay, so this is a total number of exams taken by that student, I'm assuming. Yes, private int num exams taken, so that's an instance variable. Wow, this is a good one. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Private string first name. Yes, that's going to be assigned to f name, which is one of our arguments. Private string last name, that's good. And grade level, that's all very simple. Private double GPA. Now that's not actually I don't think we use that at all. A setter method to set the GPA for the student. I don't think that's in here anywhere. I don't remember seeing anything about a GPA. It's not in here. So in fact, I'm going to just simplify this by taking that out of there. I don't think there's any reference to it. Whoops. Again, all I'm trying to do is simplify this so I can solve this problem faster. That might be helpful. I'm sure there's a question where that would be of use, but we don't need that right now. We know what a toString is. I'm going to get rid of all these comments as well too. I don't recommend getting rid of comments. I just want to be able to see the program here so I can explain it better. Now we can see most of it on one page. So first name, last name, grade level, that was simple. Those are the arguments for each instance of this class. Private int exams. So that's an instance variable as well too. It's just not associated with an argument. And private int num exams taken. Okay. So num exams taken is initialized in the constructor to 0. And exams, which is initialized up here, is initialized specifically for this object to the number of exams. And num exams, that is going to come from up here. There we go. And that's a static final int, num exams. Okay, so that value is going to be consistent for every student. All right, so we know there's going to be 4 exams. Interestingly though, let's go back and look. We're only actually putting 3 in for each student. So that may end up causing some interesting problems later on. We'll come back to that in just a minute though. Okay, I think we're finished with the explanation here. Hopefully that all makes sense. First name, last name, grade level, we got that. Exams, once again, is an array of integers, and we're going to count somehow. We're not going to count. We're going to look at the number of exams taken. We are going to count them, sorry. And that's going to happen down here. So every time we add an exam, using the exam score, which we're doing right here. So each time that we run this method, each time we run that, we're going to do 2 things. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add that score. The specific score is going to be taken into the exams array. And again, there's an exams array for each object. Then what it's going to do is increment the num exams taken. Okay, so num exams taken starts at 0, I believe. Let's see, num exam 0 is going to start at 0 when we first instantiate each object. When we add an exam score, we're going to assign that to exams 0 initially, but then we're going to increment that num exams taken so that the next time we add an exam score, it's going to be replaced with a 1. Hopefully that makes sense. And we'll also be adding in the second value into the exams array. And again, the exams array is specific to each object. Okay, this is starting to make sense. Hopefully it's starting to make sense to you as well too. And what do we need to do? Well, what we want to do is write a method for getExamRange. This shouldn't actually be too hard. Okay, we're not going to return 0. We're going to return something, but it won't reach. I guess I can leave that in there. So what do we do? Well, normally when you're looking at a range, we've got to find a minimum and a maximum number. So let's go int. We might have to change this. Int min equals 0, so minimum is 0. Int max is also equal to 0. Actually, that's not a good idea. That's going to cause problems. Let's set that to the values. Let's set them both to the first value in that array. Okay, the exams array. So that's going to be equal to exams 0. And so will this. So we're just going to initialize these variables to whatever the first exam is. And let's go back and have a look at that. First exam for Ada is going to be 44. Next exam is going to be 65. Next exam is going to be 77. So if we wanted to, we could even write some code in here just to make sure, some dummy code just to make sure that this thing's actually doing what it's supposed to do. But let's finish off what we have to do next. So we're going to have a for loop, obviously, because we need to iterate through that array for int I equals 0. Oh, I can see an issue already. I is less than, and we know the exams. So it could be exams dot length, but I can already see there's going to be a problem here. I plus plus. Okay, so maybe let's explain some of the problems. So first of all, we've already used exams 0 to set to initialize our min and max numbers. We're setting them both again to both min and max are going to be set to the first score by default. So we really don't need to check that first score again. We've already set those values. What we want to do now is start with a second one, so we can actually go int I equals 1. That should work fine. Okay. But another problem though is we're doing an exams.length, and in fact our exams length is going to be set to 4. And if we do that, when we initialize that array, okay, so we're setting this up with 4 zeros. We're only putting 3 numbers into the first 3 spots, which means that the last one's going to be 0, and that's always going to become our minimum. So what we actually want to do is not go length, but let's see. We want to go num exams taken. That's what we want. So next thing we're going to do is set up an if loop. If exams I, this part should be straightforward. If it's greater, let's do minimum first. If it's less than the minimum, then minimum is going to be equal to exams I. We're going to set it to that value. That should make sense. If exams I is greater than max, then max is going to be equal to exams I. Okay. Maybe we should just do a quick print here too. And I'm just going to be testing some code here. That's all. That's the only reason I'm doing this. Minimum set plus min. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And all it's going to do is hopefully just give us some output to whoops, I don't know why the J appeared there. Just to confirm that it's actually doing what it's supposed to do. I like to do this sort of thing when I'm coding. Sometimes I wait until after I've typed it in and tested it a few times, but let's just do that initially right off the bat here. Go to output and let's see if we've got anything happening. Make sure there's no errors. All right, Java 38 student, and I forgot a semicolon. Okay, let's see if it works. Okay, perfect. So now we need to actually call this method because we haven't done that yet, get exam range. So let's go system.out.println add.get exam range. Okay, maybe that'll work. That would be nice. Max set 65, max set 77. Okay, that's perfect. And the minimum was not set because it started at 44 and it should have maintained that value. Wow, that's fantastic. We haven't still really solved this though because it wants exam range. So instead of returning 0, what do we want to return? And it's printing the 0 here. So you probably figured it out. Max minus min. Okay, let's save it and run it. And our difference is 33. Is that right? Yes, because 77 minus the minimum, which is 44, would give us 33. Terrific. This is working. Okay. And we'll comment these out. We don't want those in there anymore. In fact, we could completely remove those. But we've already done more than half the problem. That's the hardest part for sure. I'm going to run it again just for fun. Okay, all is good. Let's go and open up Classroom now and try and understand what's going on here. So I'm going to go back here. We're going to now uncomment everything to do with Classroom. Okay, so we're going to make a new Classroom object, and we're sending a 2 in. Let's see what that's all about. Number of students. Okay, that makes sense, and we'll need that to initialize the array. So let's see what we have here. We've got student. So this is our class, our type. Okay, so it's of student, a student type of array, or an array of student objects is another way to say that. And the name of the array is students, and it's initialized to nothing right now. And our other instance variable is going to be number of students added. Okay, so let's see. Public classroom int num students. That's our constructor. If you like to label that, go right ahead. And then we've got students equals new student num students. Okay, and num students added is equal to 0. Oh, that's interesting. That's because let's see, we're creating the classroom object here, but we're not actually adding any students yet. So the number of students added is 0. The only thing we're doing is we're looking at how many students, okay, we're going to add. All right, so we've got num students here, and this is our array. So that array, which is up here, okay, again, initialized to null values. What we're doing now is we're saying that array is a new array of student objects, and we're going to create whatever this number is, and it turns out it's 2. So we're going to create 2 objects in two student objects inside of this array. Okay, hopefully that's clear. What else do we have down here? This is add student. Okay, no surprise there. Students, num students added, and num students added again has been initialized to 0. So students 0, okay, where students again is the name of our array of student objects. It's equal to s. And so when we add a student, we're sending in an object. So if we go to our tester here, we're going to say C. Again, that's our classroom object. And we're going to run the add student method, and we're going to send in, the type we're going to send in is going to be a student object. And we're going to do that twice. Okay, looks pretty straightforward. If we go back over here, when we instantiate these went to the wrong place. When we instantiate this object, okay, so we're only making one classroom object. These are not more classroom objects. We're actually using that object C to then run this method. So the last thing we want to do is see if we can get this classroom method actually working. Public student get most improved, and this shouldn't be hard. If everything else makes sense so far, this is actually going to go pretty quick, I would hope. What do we need to do? Let's describe it in plain English first, or pseudocode. You could write this down if you want. Sometimes that's the best way to go, is to actually write down the instructions one step at a time. Maybe I'll just do that now. So I want to get the most improved. So for each student, check if the range, or the exam or test range, is greater than, I'm just going to move this over, the stored range, or stored max range. Okay, so we're going to need a variable for that. And let's get a variable for this, a method variable in here. And that method variable is going to be an integer, range equals 0. Initialize it to 0. And we could probably put this down here. I'm sure it doesn't really matter. Okay. All right, so what are we going to do next? Well, we need to iterate through each student object, okay, in our array. So let's go for int I equals 0. I is less than num students added. I plus plus. And then we're going to say if students I dot get. Now I forgot the name of that method. Get exam range. Okay, if that is greater than range, in other words, greater than this variable that we have here, then range is going to be equal to this value. Students I get exam range. Okay. And you know what? I'm going to just do a quick output. Make sure it's working. Range. Could even say max range. Max range plus range. Okay. And what do we need to do here? We need to return something, a student object. Okay. So we better actually create a student, my A student. Student A equals students 0. Yeah, we just initialize it to that. That's fine. But we also, what we want to do here is we want to remember which student we're dealing with that has that maximum range. The range is not what we want to return. We want to return the student so that we can extract a name. So let's say now student, yeah, because see what we're returning is a student. So A equals students I. Okay, and we're going to finally, last thing is return, return A, which is our student. Okay, let's see. It's a lot to this. It's probably going to be a couple of errors here. Hopefully we can solve them. Oh, wow. Okay, max range 33, the most improved students out of Lovelace. I think we got it. That was, that's a fine bit of coding there. So let's get rid of this. We don't want that. We'll save it. We'll run it. We don't want that number up there, and I've forgotten where that was. That might be in student here. Because that's going to give us an error, isn't it? I can't remember where I put that. Okay, well, let's just do the check code. We know it works. It looks like it's gonna do its job here. Oh, and look at that. We're fine. Everything's good. All right, well, that's it. It's working. Over and out.